Hello and welcome to the Object Repository demo. In this video, we'll demonstrate how to import a UI library in a project and use the captured descriptors to quickly build the automation. We'll be developing a process that streamlines employee information retrieval from the Acme webpage. Let's dive in. To begin, we're starting with a project containing 3 empty workflows. First, we'll develop a process that opens the Acme webpage in a browser application in the login workflow. In the employee details workflow, we'll create a process that navigates to employee from the dashboard page and access the details of the employee indicated on the screen. And finally, we'll create a process that logs out of the Acme website in the logout workflow. But before we start building, we need to import the UI library that we created earlier. To do this, we'll click Manage Packages. Navigate to Sample Library. Select the library that we've created and install it. We can now see the imported library listed in the project panel under Dependencies, along with other Activities packages. We can also see the applications, screens, and the elements of the imported library in the Objects Repository panel under UI Libraries. To use descriptors in our project, all we need to do is drag and drop them from the Object Repository panel to the Designer panel. In the login workflow, let's drag the descriptor for the Acme login screen and drop it in our sequence. The first thing that we want to do on the login screen is type the email address into the correct field. To do this, we'll drag the email descriptor and drop it inside the do container of the use application or browser card. As this is a UI element descriptor, the command palette recommends activities that can be performed on this element. Let's select the type into activity and enter the email address. Next, we want our process to type in the password in the password field. We'll repeat the previous set of steps using the descriptor for the password field. After the process enters the email address and the password in the appropriate fields, we want it to click the Login button. To do this, we could follow a similar procedure as done for the previous descriptors. But let's try a different method of pairing a descriptor with an activity. First, let's add a click activity to the Designer panel. Then we can simply drag and drop the descriptor for the Login button on the click activity. We'll get the same result as when we drag and drop the descriptor first and then assign an activity. Note that activities using object repositories are marked by an icon that provides details such as the application, screen, and element name. These elements can be unlinked from their object repository if they need to be updated. Okay, we've completed the login workflow. Let's run it and see how it works. The process has performed all of the steps correctly. Great! Next, we'll work on the employee details workflow. We'll add the dashboard screen descriptor and use a click activity for the employee's descriptor. On the employee's screen, you can notice that we have the name of an employee and a close button. We want the process to access the details of the employee shown on the screen. As the imported UI library doesn't have a descriptor capturing the name, we'll use a getText activity to capture this UI element, which can later be added to our object repository. Next, we need a variable to save the extracted name. But instead of creating a new one, we'll use the variable present in the employee details descriptor. But before that, let's add the descriptor for the close button and use a click activity for this element. Now we'll add the employee details descriptor and use a click activity for this element as well. Once done, we're prompted with an option to create the employee name variable used in this descriptor. Let's go ahead and create it. You can find the newly created variable in the Variables panel. We'll now save the data extracted by the getText activity in this variable. Alright, we've completed the employee details workflow. Let's run it and see how it works. The process works as intended, and you can see the details of the employee shown in the message box. Great! In this workflow, all elements except for the one captured by the getText activity are part of the object repository. To add this element to the object repository, select Add to Object Repository option from the Options menu of the activity. Next, click Quick Add and provide the application name. We'll also provide a screen name and indicate the screen containing the element. You can find the newly added element in the Object Repository panel under Project UI Descriptors. We can later add this element to any UI library that we want. Let's develop the last workflow in our project. We'll add the employee screen, as this is where our process should be at this point, and pair a click activity with the descriptor for the Logout button. And that's it for this workflow. Let's see it run. OK, it runs as expected. This concludes our demonstration on how to import a UI library in a project and how to use the object repository to develop UI automations faster. To sum up, in this video, we've imported a UI library using the Manage Packages window and used the descriptors in the library to develop 3 UI automation workflows. Thanks for watching and happy automation!